I did not say you were lying. I said to tell the truth, which Dad retorted. The truth about what? I asked. How you're feeling, which Dad said. You don't have to say it to anyone else. Just admit it yourself. You mean the people in this park, the people who work for you, Mrs. Martin, they don't do that? I asked. I doubt it, said Rich Dad. Instead, they feel the fear of not having money. They don't confront it logically, they react emotionally instead of using their heads, Rich Dad said. Then they get a few bucks in their hands, and again, the emotion of joy, desire, and greed take over. And again, they react instead of think. So the emotions control their brain, Mike said. That's correct, said Rich Dad. Instead of admitting the truth about how they feel, they react to their feelings and fail to think. They feel the fear, so they go to work hoping that money will soothe the fear. But it doesn't. It continues to haunt them and they return to work, hoping again that money will calm their fears. And again, it doesn't. Fear keeps them in this trap of working, earning money, working, earning money, hoping the fear will go away. But every day they get up and that old fear wakes up with them. For millions of people, that old fear keeps them awake all night, causing a night of turmoil and worry. So they get up and go to work, hoping that a paycheck will kill that fear gnawing at their soul. Money is running their lives, and they refuse to tell the truth about that. Money is in control of their emotions and the soul. Rich Dad sat quietly, letting his word sink in. Mike and I heard what he said, but didn't understand fully what he was talking about. I just knew that I often wondered why grown ups hurried off to work did not seem like much fun, and they never looked that happy. But something kept them going. Realizing we had absorbed as much as possible of what he was talking about, the judge said, I want you boys to avoid that trap. That is really what I want to teach you. Not just to be rich, because being rich does not solve the problem. It doesn't? I asked, surprised. No, it doesn't. Let me explain the other emotions. Desire. Some call it greed, but I prefer desire. It's perfectly normal to desire something better, prettier, or more fun. They desire money for joy. They think it can buy. But the joy that money brings is often short lived. So they soon need more money for more joy, more pleasure, more comfort, and more security. So they keep working, thinking money will soothe their soul. They are troubled by fear and desire. But money can't do that. Even rich people do this, Mike said. Rich people included, said Rich Dad. In fact, the reason many rich people are rich isn't because of desire, but because of fear. They believe that money can eliminate the fear of being poor. So they amass tons of it, only to find the fear gets worse. Now they fear losing the money. I have friends who keep working even though they have plenty. I know people who have millions who are more afraid now than when they were poor. They are terrified of losing it all. The fear that drove them to get rich got worse. That weak and needy part of their soul is actually screaming louder. They don't want to lose the big house, the car, and the high life money has brought them. They worry about what their friends would say. If they lost all their money, many are emotionally desperate and neurotic. Although they look rich and have more money, so is a poor man happy? I asked. No, I don't think so, replied Rich Dad. The avoidance of money is just as psychotic as being attached to money. As if on cue, the derelict went past our table, stopping by the large rubbish can and rummaging around it. The three of us watched him with great interest, when before we probably would have just ignored him. Rich Dad pulled a dollar out of his wallet and gestured to the old man. Seeing the money, the derelict came over immediately, took the bill, thanked Rich Dad profusely, and hurried off, ecstatic with his good fortune. He's not much different from my most employees, said Rich Dad. I have met so many people who says, "Oh, I'm not interested in money," yet they'll work at a job for 8 hours a day. That's a denial of truth. If they weren't interested in money, then why are they working? That kind of thinking is probably more psychotic than a person who hoards money. As I sat there listening to my rich dad, my mind flashed back to countless times my own dad said, "I'm not interested in money." He said those words often. He also covered himself by always saying, "I work because I love my job." So, what do we do? I asked. Not work for money until all traces of fear and greeds are gone? No, that would be a waste of time, said Rich Dad. Emotions are what makes us human. The word emotion stands for energy in motion. Be truthful about your emotions and use your mind and emotion in your favor, not against yourself. Whoa, said Mike. Don't worry about that, I just said. It will make more sense in years to come. Just be an observer, not a reactor to your emotions. Most people do not know that it's their emotions that are doing the thinking. Your emotions are your emotions, but you have got to learn to do your own thinking. Can you give me an example? Sure, replied Rich Dad. When a person say, "I need to find a job," it's most likely an emotion doing the thinking. Fear of not having money generates that thought. But people do need money if they have bills to pay, I said. Sure they do, smiled Rich Dad. All I'm saying is that it's fear that is all often doing the thinking. I don't understand, said Mike. For example, said Rich Dad, if the fear of not having enough money arises, instead of immediately running out of to get a job, they instead might ask themselves the question, will a job be the best solution to this fear over a long run? In my opinion, the answer is no. A job is really a short term solution to a long term problem. But my dad is always saying, stay in school, get good grades, so you can find safe, secure job. I interjected, somewhat confused. Yes, I understand. He says that, said Rich Dad, smiling. Most people recommend that, and it's a good path for most people. But people make that recommendation primarily out of fear. You mean my dad says that because he's afraid? Yes, said Rich Dad. He's terrified that you won't earn enough money and won't fit into the society. Don't get me wrong, he loves you and wants the best for you. I do believe an education and a job are important, but it won't handle the fear. You see, the same fear that makes him get up in the morning to earn a few bucks is the fear that is causing him to be so financially fanatical about your going to school. So, what do you recommend? I asked. I want you to teach. I want to teach you to master the power of money instead of being afraid of it. They don't teach that in school. And if you don't learn it, you become a slave to money. Was finally making sense. He wanted us to widen our views and to see what the Mrs. Martin of this world couldn't see. He used examples that sounded cruel at the time, but I never forgotten them. My vision widened that day, and I began to see the trap that lay ahead for most people. You see, we are all employees ultimately. We just work at different levels, said Rich Dad. I just want you boys to have a chance to avoid the trap caused by those two emotions, fear and desire. Use them in your favor, not against you. That's what I want to teach you. I'm not interested in teaching you to make a pile of money. That won't handle the fear of desire. If you don't first handle fear and desire and you'll get rich, you'll only be highly paid slave. So how do we avoid the trap? I asked. The main cause of poverty or financial struggle is fear and ignorance, not the economy or the government or the rich. It's self inflicted fear and ignorance that keep people trapped. So, you boys, go to school, get your college degrees, and I'll teach you how to stay out of that trap. The pieces of the puzzle were appearing. My highly educated dad had great education and great career, but school never told him how to handle money or his fear of it. It became clear that I could learn different and important things from two fathers. So, you have been talking about the fear of not having money. How does the desire for money affect our thinking? Mike asked. How do you feel when I tempted you with a pay raise? Did you notice your desire rising? We nodded our heads. By not giving in to your emotions, you are able to delay your reactions and think. That is important. We'll always have emotions of fear and greed. From here on in, it's imperative for you to use those emotions to your advantage. And for the long term, to not let your emotions control your thinking. Most people use fear and greed against themselves. That's the part of ignorance. Most people live their lives chasing paycheck, pay raises, and job security because of the emotions of desire and fear, not really questioning where those emotions driven thoughts are leading them. It's just like the picture of a donkey dragging a cart with its owner dangling a carrot just in front of its nose. The donkey's owner may be going where he wants to, but the donkey is chasing an illusion. Tomorrow there will only be another carrot for the donkey. You mean the moment I picture a new baseball glove, candy, and toys, that's like a carrot to a donkey? Mike asked. Yes, but as you get older, your toys get more expensive. A new car, a boat, and a big house to impress your friends, said Rich Dad with a smile. Fear pushes you out the door and desire calls to you. That's the trap. So, what's the answer? Mike asked. What intensifies fear and desire is ignorance. That's why rich people with a lot of money often have more fear the richer gets they get. People with a lot of money often have more fear. Money is the carrot, the illusion. If the donkey would see the whole picture, it might rethink its choice to chase the carrot. Rich Dad went on to explain that a human's life is a struggle between ignorance and illumination. He explained that once a person stopped searching for information and self acknowledge, ignorance set in. That struggle is a moment to moment decision to learn to open or close one's mind. Look, school is very important. You go to school to learn a skill or profession, to become a contributing member of society. Every culture needs teacher, doctors, mechanics, artists, cooks, business people, police officer, firefighters, and soldiers. Schools train them so society can thrive and flourish, said Rich Dad. Unfortunately, for many people, school in the end is the end, not the beginning. There was a long silence. Rich Dad was smiling. I didn't comprehend everything he said that day, but as with most great teachers, his words continued to teach for years. I have been a little cruel today, said Rich Dad, but I want you to always remember this talk. I want you to always think of Mrs. Martin, and I want you always to remember that donkey. Never forget that fear and desire can lead you into life's biggest trap. If you're not aware of them, controlling your thinking, to spend your life living in fear, never exploring your dreams is cruel. To work hard for money, thinking that it will buy you things that will make you happy, is also cruel. To wake up in the middle of the night, terrified about paying bills, is a horrible way to live. To live a life dictated by the size of a paycheck is not really living a life. Thinking that a job makes you secure is lying to yourself. That's cruel, and that's the trap I want you to avoid. I've seen how money runs people's lives. Don't let that happen to you. Please don't let money run your life. A softball rolled under our table. Rich Dad picked it up and threw it back. So, what does ignorance have to do with fear and greed? I asked. Because it is ignorance about money that causes so much greed and fear, said Rich Dad. Let me give you some example. A doctor wanting more money to better provide for his family raises his fees. But raising his fees, it makes healthcare more expensive for everyone. It hurts the poor people the most. So they have worse health than those with money. Because the doctors raise their fees, the attorneys raise their fees. Because the attorneys' r- fees have gone up, school teachers wants a raise, which raises our taxes, and on and on and on. Soon there will be such a horrifying gap between the rich and the poor that chaos will break out and another great civilization will collapse. History proves that great civilization collapse when the gap between the haves and the haves not is too great. Sadly, America is on the same course because we haven't learned from history. We only memorize historical dates and names, not the lessons. Aren't prices supposed to go up? I asked. In an educated society with a well run government, prices should actually come down. Of course, that is often only true in theory. Prices go up because of greed and fear caused by ignorance. If schools taught people about money, there would be more money and lower prices. But schools focus only on teaching people to work for money, not how to harness money's power. But don't we have business schools, Mike asked? And haven't you encouraged me to go for my MBA? Yes, said Rich Dad. But all too often, business schools train employees to become sophisticated bean counters. Heaven forbid a bean counter takes over a business. All they do is look at the number, fire people, and kill the business. I know this because I hire bean counters. All they think about is cutting cost, raising prices, which causes more problems. Bean counting is important. I wish more people knew it. But it too is not the whole picture, said Rich Dad angrily. So, is there an answer? Asked Mike. Yes, said Rich Dad. Learn to use your emotions to think, not think with your emotions. When you boys mastered your emotions by agreeing to work for free, I knew there was hope. When you again resisted your emotions, when I tempted you with more money, you were again learning to think in spite of being emotionally charged. That's the first step. Why is that step so important? I asked.